It had the engine, the attitude, and the audacity. Chrysler believed it could conquer Le Mans with a fire-breathing V10 Viper, and for a moment, it almost did. But why did it all fall apart? What crushed the dream? And why do so few people talk about it today? Stick around till the end, because the most shocking part isn't how the story ends, but why it never got to restart. The birth of a beast, how the Viper V10 was never meant for Le Mans. The Dodge Viper wasn't born out of corporate strategy, it came from passion. In the late 80s, Chrysler was struggling. They needed a showstopper, a car to make headlines and grab attention. Enter Bob Lutz and Tom Gale, two car guys in a corporate world who decided to go rogue and create something wild. The result? The Viper RT/10, a modern-day Cobra with no roof, no ABS, no airbags, and no excuses. Just a gigantic 8.0-liter V10 that had been borrowed and reworked from a truck engine. It was insane. It was beautiful. But it wasn't a race car, not at first. The original Viper was a street monster. It roasted tires, snapped necks, and made everything else on the road look polite. Still, no one thought this unhinged muscle car could survive 24 hours at Le Mans, let alone win. The Europeans had been perfecting endurance racing for decades. Porsche, Ferrari, BMW. These weren't just car brands. They were racing dynasties. The Viper was a hooligan crashing the Royal Ball, but that's exactly what made it so dangerous. Because Chrysler didn't build the Viper to impress the elite. They built it to challenge them. And soon someone inside Chrysler had the wild idea. What if this beast could be tamed just enough to take on the world's most brutal race? The Viper wasn't supposed to go to Le Mans, but the car had a mind of its own, and it was just getting started. The Orica Gamble, how a French racing team turned a muscle car into a winner. If Chrysler was serious about taking the Viper to Le Mans, they needed help, and not just any help. They needed someone who understood European endurance racing inside and out. That's when they turned to Orica. Orica was the real deal. Based in France, they had experience in everything from rally to prototype racing. They knew the tracks, the regulations, the strategy. But most importantly, they believed in the Viper project. And that belief turned into action. The transformation was intense. The Street Viper was torn down, rebuilt, and reborn as the Viper GTS-R. It was wider, stiffer, lighter, and equipped with just enough aero to keep it from flying off the Mulsanne Straight. The V10 was detuned slightly for reliability, but it still packed a thunderous punch. This was no longer a street car with a roll cage. This was a race weapon, engineered to survive 24 hours of relentless abuse. And guess what? It worked. In 1996, the Viper GTS-R made its debut at Le Mans. It didn't win, but it turned heads. By 1998, it was winning class victories, not just at Le Mans, but across Europe and North America. In 1999 and 2000, it absolutely dominated, finishing first and second in the GT2 class at Le Mans 2 years in a row. No one was laughing anymore. Orica had taken an American icon and made it a global threat. The Viper wasn't just surviving in Europe, it was ruling. And for a brief, glorious moment, Chrysler was on top of the racing world. But as quickly as it all came together, it began to unravel. The Silent Sabotur, how Daimler's takeover dismantled a racing dream. In 1998, Chrysler merged with Daimler-Benz in what was billed as a merger of equals. It was anything but. Almost overnight, the culture changed. What had once been a scrappy American company taking big risks became a cold, calculated division of a massive German corporation. To Mercedes, the Viper was an embarrassment. It didn't align with their luxury image. It didn't fit the polished, buttoned-up brand they wanted to project globally. More importantly, Mercedes had their own motorsport ambitions, with AMG and later with McLaren. Why would they support an American brute crashing the same parties they were trying to dress up for? So little by little, they pulled the plug. Budgets were cut. Corporate support disappeared. Orica was left hanging. Without direction from Detroit and without the money to keep evolving the car, the Viper program began to stall. And unlike on the track, this wasn't a sudden crash. It was a slow, quiet death. By the early 2000s, the factory support was gone. Orica moved on to other projects. The Viper GT-SR still raced, but now it was privateers, underdogs trying to keep the dream alive. Without factory muscle behind them, they didn't stand a chance. This wasn't a defeat at the hands of Porsche or Ferrari. This was sabotage from within. The people who once championed the Viper had been replaced by executives who didn't understand or care what it meant. Fading glory. When the snake stopped evolving, in racing, standing still means falling behind. And after 2000, the Viper stood still. The world moved on. GT racing evolved. Aerodynamics improved. Materials changed. Regulations shifted. And while rivals like Corvette and Aston Martin adapted, upgraded, and returned with factory-backed programs, the Viper faded into the background. The sad part? The core ingredients were still solid. That V10 could still bellow like a thunder god. The chassis, with the right tuning, could still hang in the corners. But development had frozen. There was no funding, no direction, no plan. The once proud snake had become a dinosaur. Meanwhile, Corvette swept in and took Viper's place. The C5R and later the C6R became Le Mans regulars, winning class after class with full GM backing. Fans who once wore Viper shirts started cheering for the bow tie. Not because they loved Corvette more, but because the Viper simply wasn't there anymore. That's how fast legacy can vanish in motorsport. One year you're the king, the next you're not even invited to the castle. The resurrection that never took flight. When Chrysler revived the Viper in 2012, fans were thrilled. The fifth-gen car was a monster, more powerful, more refined, still rocking a naturally aspirated V10 when everyone else had gone turbo. It was a love letter to what made the original great, but with modern engineering, and it didn't take long for the racing rumors to start. Could this be the comeback? Would the Viper rise from the ashes and return to Le Mans? For a second, it looked like it might. The SRT Viper GT-SR was developed for GT racing. It entered the American Le Mans Series and competed in IMSA. The car had promise. The team had potential. But once again, the people behind the scenes weren't all in. The marketing never fully backed it. The budget was tight. Chrysler was juggling too many brands, too many crises. And then without warning, the program was axed. No Le Mans run, no redemption arc, just silence. It was like watching a phoenix rise from the ashes, only to be shot mid-air before it could take flight. Why the fall still hurts fans, Today Talk, to any fan who followed GT racing during the late 90s and early 2000s. And you'll notice it instantly, that unmistakable glint in their eye when they say the word Viper. There's passion there, yes, but more than that, there's frustration. It's not just a car they remember, it's a dream that slipped through their fingers. Because deep down, they know the Viper didn't fade away because it wasn't good enough. It didn't lose because it was outclassed. It lost because the people who controlled its fate stopped believing in it. And that stings. The Viper had everything you could want in a race car. It had heart, the kind that made crowds stand up when they heard that screaming V10 ripping down a straight. It had power, brutal, unapologetic American horsepower that dared to challenge the sophisticated, polished dominance of Europe. And most importantly, it had fans, diehard supporters who followed every race, wore every shirt, knew every stat. What it didn't have in the end was commitment, a company willing to keep investing, to evolve it, to protect its legacy. And in motorsport, that's the real currency. Talent, speed, even results. None of it matters without corporate backing, without someone in a boardroom who gives a damn. It's a story as old as racing itself, where raw potential isn't enough, where legends are left in the dust because of politics, budget cuts, or shifting priorities. The Viper could have been a dynasty. It should have been the American GT powerhouse for generations. Instead, it became a cautionary tale, a what could have been. And maybe that's why the pain still lingers. Because for a brief moment, the Viper showed the world that America didn't just belong in GT racing, it could dominate it. And then, it vanished, not beaten, but abandoned. The ghost of Le Mans, a legacy that deserved more today. The Viper's triumphs are barely whispered. There's no parade, no big budget documentary, No merchandise with its famous red, white, and blue livery flying off shelves. You won't find mainstream sports networks paying tribute to its hard-earned victories. It's like the world just forgot. No viral Twitter threads, no nostalgic YouTube montages, no annual On This Day posts celebrating that thunderous American underdog. It's as if history hit delete on one of racing's most unlikely success stories. But here's the thing, history didn't forget, it just stopped telling the story. The Viper GTSR didn't just show up at Le Mans, it showed up, dominated, and rewrote the script. Against odds, budgets, and expectations, it proved that raw American muscle, when paired with clever engineering and relentless determination, absolutely belonged on the same stage as European racing royalty. When you flip through the Le Mans history books, the big names jump out: Ford and Ferrari in shimmering gold, Audi, Peugeot, Porsche, and Toyota engraved in silver and legacy. But hidden in the margins, dusty and almost erased, is the name Viper. If you're lucky and quiet enough, you'll still hear that monstrous V10 echoing through the French countryside, howling down the Mulsanne, defying the odds, reminding the world that it was real. It happened, and it mattered. So was the Viper V10 a failure? Not on the track. It failed because the people behind it gave up when they should have pushed harder. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of racing's most untold stories, give the video a like, subscribe for more raw motorsport legends, and drop a comment below. Would you have brought the Viper back? Could it have conquered Le Mans again? Let's keep this legend alive, because a story like this should never be forgotten. See you in the next one.